Hi guys, welcome to tonight's Thursday night role-playing. Tonight we're going to be going over how to create a character in 5th edition D&D. Now, for that you need a few things. Firstly, a PHB. You don't necessarily have to own your own one, you can borrow one from a mate. Secondly, some dice. I have swanky dice because I bought swanky dice. They're not the world's most amazing dice, but they are pretty. Personally, I like Chessex because they have the right combination of shiny and pretty and cheap. You're going to want 4d6s to begin with. Now, and then various other dice as you go on. You're going to need a pencil and you're going to need one of these, which is a character sheet. In case you're wondering, the character sheet is available in the back of your D&D book, which they'll let you photocopy for personal use, or there are some PDFs downloadable from Wizards of the Coast's own website with a couple of character sheet variations on it, and some you can even fill in as form fillable PDFs, which are quite nice. Now, there's a basic way of building characters, which is effectively how the book is laid out. You start with choosing a race, choosing a class. Where are we? Where's the third thing? Determining your ability scores, describing your character, choosing equipment, and then coming together with the rest of your group, determining how you are interrelated to your group. This is a perfectly fine way of doing it, but I personally wouldn't recommend it if you want to get the best out of your game. The first thing tends to be, in my mind, look at what the group is and what the group wants to do. If you're joining a pre-existing group, it is very much worth noting what the group already has in it. If you want to play something that's essentially a carbon copy of something that's already in the group, you're going to find yourself with limited amounts to do unless you've got a reason for there to be a carbon copy and you guys have a way of working together that's going to allow you to function and get plot and get roleplay and get basically your slice of the action. If you're in a new group, it is worth discussing what you guys like to do when you play. If you're a new player, working out where you might be. Now, it's also worth remembering, if you discuss where you are and what you like doing, and you take a character based on what you think will provide you the most fun and the most enjoyment whilst in that group, and then it sucks, dump it. You can totally start again, have a word with your DM, say, look, this isn't working. I need to figure out how to work it, and either your DM will be able to get you some action or get you some fun, or you rebuild your character and something happens there. Secondly, I always think what you want to do. Now, you need to, I tend to sort of do it backwards basically. As I say, get together with the guys, discuss with them how you think you fit in the group and how they think you fit in. They will discuss the same with each other. Also, think what you want to do. I've seen some people who just come in and say, oh, what does the group need? I'll play that. And that can be enjoyable, but don't just do that because the group needs a healer or it needs a meat shield. Make sure you're doing something that you think you're going to enjoy. Then I personally recommend build the character's background around that, because that will dictate a lot of the skills you want, a lot of the things it'll help you figure out what you're going to pursue as part of your character and your character's development arc. And having that stuff in place will often help guide you with the rest of it. Building your character and then doing that last can sometimes end up with a disconnect, or often can end up with you doing that, going back and having to rework and retweak your character so it fits in better with what you decided you want to do on a role-playing level. So I was thinking, work out your chemistry between your group and see what your options are. You might find that that group doesn't have a place for you to do what you want to enjoy. And it's often a good idea finding that out before you commit a lot of time to a group. The most important thing about almost any D&D group is that you're a group of people who have fun together. If you find out in the beginning that that's not likely because your personalities don't mesh, you can often save yourself a lot of time and find another group. Or you can think of how you might get around that, how, the fact that they want to do it a certain way and you want to do it differently, can you still get what you want in that group? These are things to consider when role-playing. I've seen groups with great chemistry, and it doesn't matter what character, what class they play, as long as they're playing together, they'll have fun. I've seen groups with terrible chemistry where it doesn't matter what they do, they always seem to get on each other's toes, tread on each other's toes, argue, and frankly they spend 90% of the game arguing about what they want to do rather than actually playing and having fun. Not that there isn't a lot of roleplay to be had with a group that's conflicted, but, whether or not you think there's a good chance of you enjoying something is really the primary consideration when playing a game. And that's what D&D is. A lot of people are very serious about their gaming. A lot of people take some of this stuff very much to heart, but at the end of the day, it's a game where you're supposed to have fun. If you're not having fun, you're wasting your time. You're just spending time doing something that you don't enjoy for the purpose of pure enjoyment. There is no other benefit. There is no professional D&D league. There is no way of making money from D&D when it sucks. There are some people who do podcasts like myself. I don't make money, but there are some that do. But one of the universal things you tend to find out about them is they actually have fun playing the game. And they try and help you have fun playing the game. Anyway, that little rant aside. After you thought, okay, what options are there for me? What would I like to do? How do I marry these two ideas? You then look at class and race. Now, some people say, in the thing it says choose a race first, then choose a class. I'd recommend reading through the classes and reading through the races and seeing ways in which they mesh, seeing ways in which they'll provide good role-playing. Some characters some race and class combinations are unusual and kind of work against each other. Some work with each other in ways that will give you advantages in game mechanics. That's worth considering purely on the basis that if you want to play a character that is antithetical to the normal character, if you want to play an elf that is a brutish, unrefined barbarian, which is a great fun thing to play, by the way, I've done it myself, be aware it will give you certain disadvantages, but it will also give you a ton of roleplay. If you want to play an orc that's actually very refined and very intelligent and doesn't use his physical strength, be aware that some of your advantages won't necessarily come into play. And you want to consider, is that something you care about? Do you want a character that's as good as it can possibly be? Do you want a character that is more emphasised on roleplay? Little side word on min-maxing. You'll hear the term min-maxing. Sometimes you'll hear it called bearding or cheesing the character. This is when you line everything up perfectly to make the character the most effective character on paper and within the rules system as possible. You can make characters immensely powerful this way and immensely effective. It doesn't automatically follow that they'll be immensely fun. I've seen a lot of people do this, and then when the character gets smashed or it doesn't work, they get very upset. I've seen a lot of people create characters where they sacrifice everything to be as good as they can at one thing, and then because the DM hasn't planned to put that thing in there, they find themselves not doing it anywhere near enough to really validate the game. And really, again, the game's about fun first. You can min-max your characters. That's perfectly legitimate. It's perfectly legitimate to think, okay, my character would train or would work to be a good warrior. There's nothing wrong with the logic that if your character's a warrior, he's going to be as good as he can with a sword. He's also going to be strong. Or if your character is an orc and naturally strong, he might use that. He might feel that strength is the first thing he resorts to. Therefore, you're going to combine orc and fighter to create a brutal character class. There's nothing. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just something I think you should consider secondarily to, is this character going to be fun? On the same note, I've seen people hamstring their characters, make them as terrible as they can to try and get past that disadvantage and get roleplay playing past that disadvantage, and you can go too far to create a character that is unplayable. Personally, I go with a healthy balance of this makes sense and this looks like it'd be fun, and that's where I'd recommend you go as well. So you look at the character classes, you look at the races, and by all means let them inspire you, see how they play with each other, and choose one once you know what the other is. Ability scores. That's what you tend to do is roll a bunch of dice, and it gives you, as we can see, here are your abilities. You've got strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You need a set of numbers, which is the total of 3 dice, to fill 6 different slots. So you roll the 3 dice 6 times. Now, it describes different ways of doing it. You can just roll 3 dice and take what you get. What most people do, and one of the ways it describes, is you roll 4 dice and you get rid of the lowest dice. You've got hard mode, which I've seen some people do, which is they roll 4 dice and they get rid of the highest dice. Or you've got heroic mode, which is something that I've done and I've seen other people do, which is you roll 3 dice and then add 6 on the assumption that your characters shouldn't be rubbish. There is no wrong way to do it. It's about what you think would be fun. Sometimes it's fun to start off with a higher level character where you've got some boosting and where you've got good levels of numbers. Sometimes it's fun to start off being really rubbish and building yourself up and putting that time and that effort in and then seeing that rewarded. Now, what you tend to do is roll the dice a set number of times. In this case 6, or the standard 6, and then you choose where those numbers go, which is why you want to know where your race and your class is, because you want to know where your bonuses are, where you need to put numbers, where you can afford to have a dump stat. And again, for those who don't know, a dump stat is often referred to as the stat you don't need, although sometimes it's also referred to as the stat you always put XP into. When you don't know where to put XP, you dump it into that stat. You're always going to have a stat which is your weakness, which is where your lowest number is. You're always going to have a stat which is your strength, which is where your highest number is. And that'll have to be determined by your class. You can then often use the right race to either bump those numbers to bring up the lowest number so you're a more well-rounded character, or to increase the highest number so you're a character that's more specialised. And again, both ways are perfectly valid ways to do it. Always work with your DM to do this, because your DM should help you build a viable, functional character, and he should have an idea of what's going to be happening in your campaign. So if you're going to build a character that's purely about smashing undead and he has no plans to bring undead into your campaign, he can guide you away from that. If you're going to build a character that is a mer person, that is a Tritoni and has a lot of stuff based around water, and he's planning to host the game in the middle of a desert, he can steer you away from that. It's worth noting there are a bunch of additional classes and additional characters beside the ones in the player's handbook, but it's usually a good idea to stick with the PHB for your first outing. After you've determined your ability scores, you put them in, you can then work out where your bonuses are. There are lots of little helpful things. For example, you've got this little thing here which tells you what bonuses, what races get. You've got your ability bonus, you've got your ability score modifiers which are worked out there. Basically, if you've got a strength of 10, you get an ability modifier of 0. Whereas if you've got a strength, for example, of 18, which is pretty much the highest you can get, when rolling 3 dice, you've got an ability score of +4. So that when you roll your d20 to do things, and this is the dice you'll use most, the d20, that will add to that ability score and determine how well or how badly you do at something. Another way to determine ability scores is you can have a set of points which you then spend to increase ability scores up to or beyond a certain level. That option again is written in the book. There's a little table there. There's no invalid way. Most people play the randomization way because it can change a character and it can affect a character in unexpected ways, which is fun. Equipment is pretty much the last thing. Depending on your DMs, some people will keep very detailed lists of equipment. Other people will assume you have good basic equipment, but you get to choose your equipment. There's several parts in the game which it gives you access and tells you what equipment you can choose. That's sort of a brief overview of character building. I'm just going to go through a little bit more through it in a little bit more detail next week, but that basically gives you an idea of roughly what you want to be looking for when you build a character. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed this. As I say, next week I'll be going through character classes, some of their strengths, some of their weaknesses, and races, some of their strengths, some of the weaknesses, and how they can play off each other when building a character. I hope to see you guys then, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Hi guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. Or you can head over to my Patreon page and support me directly. Remember, it's your support that allows me to do this. Until next time, see you around.